Business News, where news for business people.
Good morning, you're watching Bloomberg Quint Live and this is Daybreak. I'm Alex Matthew. We get you all the news updates you need when it's bright and early. Today it's just early, it's still dark outside. I'm Alex Matthew. Here are your headlines. Asian markets look all set to post strong gains at the first week of 2018. That's after the Dow crosses 25,000 for the first time ever. Fitch Ratings says India has the highest growth potential among all emerging markets over the next 5 years. Indian Overseas Bank wants to hit the reset button, plans to write off its losses of nearly 7,000 crore by adjusting it against its share premium. The government is looking to make it easier for consumers to report violations of GST anti-profiteering law. The US calls Pakistan a safe haven for terrorists, suspends all security aid to the country. The Dow Jones Industrial Average breached and held above the 25,000 mark for the first time on Thursday, managing the fastest 1,000-point move in its history. This followed the release of stronger than expected jobs data. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle wraps up all that happened in the US market in this report.
Stocks rallied in Thursday's Wall Street session for a third day in a row, the first three sessions in 2018, setting more record highs for the Dow, S&P 500, and the Nasdaq. In fact, the Dow closed above 25,000 for the first time ever. This is the bulls are taking charge of early 2018 trading action. And on Thursday, it was the Dow's day to outperform, up 0.6% and more than the other major averages of the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Now, relative to sector composition, it was a broad-based rally with 9 of the 11 S&P 500 sectors higher, led by the financials, materials, and industrials. Now, behind the strength for the financials, it seems Goldman Sachs had a bullish note or notes out saying banks and consumer finance companies are set to outperform in 2018. With this, the likes of Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo were all up more than 1%. But two notable stocks lower on the session, Snap and Roku, recent high-profile IPO stocks, both sharply lower on the day on downgrades, although even so, Roku is still up more than 250% from its IPO late last year. And then finally, despite the snow bomb on the east coast of the United States and a forecast for frigid weather ahead, natural gas fell about 4% on the session, perhaps some sell the news action, and this did weigh on some E&P names, including Range Resources and Chesapeake Energy. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
Well, the positivity from overnight in the US markets have clearly moved on, excuse me, to the Asian markets. The Asian markets have all opened positive, those that are currently open. And if you can look at, yes, so the Nikkei is up as much as 0.3%. The other early risers are also up. We'll get you updates on China later in the day. But let's move on now to the Indian market, and Darshan Mehta and Agam Vakil are here to set you up for the day's trade and also to tell you what's happening in the futures and options space. Morning, guys. First to you, Darshan. What's on your list today?
Good morning, Alex. The cues coming in from the global scene are extremely positive. The Dow topping 25,000 and the commodity back is extremely strong. But the SGX Nifty is also indicating a positive outlook. It's up almost 25 points after the big 60-point up move that we saw yesterday. So the trend on the Nifty continues to be on the positive side. As far as ADRs were concerned, Vedanta was up 2%, Dr. Reddy's was up 1.5%. The other ADRs were down in trade. Tata Motors, Infosys traded lower in trade. As far as crude is concerned, crude gained almost 0.6% overnight, trading muted in morning trade. So WTI hits 62, Brent hits $68 barrel per mark, and the stockpiles that are declining is indicating that oil prices are near at 3-year high. So this is the scene as far as crude is concerned. Strong close by the base metals on LME. Take a look at it. Nickel was up 2%, zinc up almost 1%, aluminium up 1%. There was copper up 0.6%, lead was up, tin was the only one which was marginally down in trade. Even as far as China is concerned, it's a mixed start. Some of the commodities are doing well. So aluminium is trading up, iron ore and rubber are trading down. Copper has just managed to open and it's trading with a slight positive bias. Gold is up almost 7% from the December lows. So there's significant significant amount of traction that's coming in from the gold market. Yesterday, FIs were net buyers to the tune of 212 crores. Even DIs were net buyers in the market yesterday. They bought in almost 325 crores in the cash market. So overall, if you take the month into consideration, FIs have bought in 700 crores in the cash market, while DIs are net sellers to the tune of almost 1200 crores in the cash market. Now, the Nifty was up, the VIX was down almost 1.5%. Which were the sectors that did well, which didn't do well? So you had the metal and PSU banks, which rallied significantly, close to 2.5 to 3% gains that you saw on the sector. Auto continues to remain weak. It was down almost 0.2%. So that's the traction that's coming in. Nifty was up almost 60 points. What contributed? L&T, SBI, Reliance, ONGC. So some of the PSU banks and the oil majors contributed. IT continues to be weak. Auto is weighing on the Nifty. So Tata Motors, Maruti, and Eicher, all of them falling in trade. But Agam, what are the FNOQs indicating?
Well, Darshan, the flip-flop around 10,500 continues for the Nifty, and we are looking for the consolidation as indicated by what we saw in the previous few days. And when it comes to the Nifty, we haven't really seen too much with respect to change in open interest, about a 2% added. And when it comes to the Nifty Bank, again, with respect to its underlying, just about another 0.6% gains and, well, 1% unwinding as far as open interest goes. The India Volatility Index has moved down further, still firmly above the mark of 30, nothing much to speak for. And the Nifty put call ratio also has seen only a minor change at around 1.48 right now, or rather 1.5. But in terms of changes in open interest, as you can see, well, we have seen a little more activity now around the 10,400 mark, where puts have been written, and some unwinding in the 10,500 call, but it is a 10,600 mark which will be kept in place and kept in check by all those who are bearish in the market. That said, we have new entrants in the FNO band, so GSPL as well as Gen Irrigation enter. We also have something which moves out of the band. So no, this is not. Yes, there you have it. Okay. Well, don't worry, the French index is not out of the FNO band. In fact, it's very unlikely that we will see the French index come out. But yes, we have seen Allahabad Bank move up by as much as 2%, and we've seen fresh longs building in there. And among several other counters, we're watching out for something like a Reliance Communication as well as Reliance Naval, which has also seen a lot of activity. But these are some of the stocks that we're watching out for as we move into trade today.
Thanks so much for that, Agam. But, clearly, economic growth has been the focus of discussion in market yesterday. It will continue to do so today. And when it comes to India, perhaps India is looking a little sanguine, at least according to Fitch Ratings. It is said that India has the highest medium-term growth potential among large emerging markets. It has placed India at the top of the list among 10 of the largest emerging markets in its global economic outlook forecasts. India is projected to grow at 6.7% per annum over the next 5 years. China and Indonesia ranked second with a projected growth of 5.5% per annum. The 5.5% forecast for China represents a significant slowdown from the recent historical average. Let's now take a check on the rupee and the bond market, and Saloni Dhanuka is here to give you all the updates on those two markets. Saloni, morning.
Good morning, Alex. So the rupee continued its upward march in the first week of 2018 by hitting a 2.5-year high again yesterday of 64.41 levels against the dollar. Now the home currency did weaken initially post FOMC minute release and increasing global crude oil prices. However, the forex market sentiment got a boost after the release of monthly Indian service sector data, which showed that the growth returned in December on the back of new orders. Also, a rally in the domestic equity markets largely supported the rupee's up move. Traders do remain cautious as the government is due to announce its first official forecast of economic growth later today. According to a Bloomberg survey, they're predicting that the GDP will grow at 6.7% in the first half in this year through March 2018, which is the slowest pace since 2014. On the global front, dollar dropped 0.3% despite strong jobs data. Traders will keep an eye on the release of non-farm payrolls data, which is scheduled for release today evening. On the flip side, the common currency euro touched a 3-year high yesterday on the back of strong economic data as well as due to broad-based dollar weakness. Now coming back home, dollar rupee is trading at 63.37 levels against the dollar in the non-deliverable forward markets, which indicates a flat to positive opening for the Indian rupee in today's trade. Now moving on to debt market, benchmark sovereign bonds declined for the third day this week ahead of the sale of new 10-year security today. Also, the 10-year benchmark yields ended steady yesterday at 7.33%, while global funds increased their rupee debt holdings by roughly 570 crores according to NSDL data, Alex.
Thanks for that, Saloni, and also thanks for pointing out that there's data that you have to watch out for later today. That's US, the non-farm payroll, and also the unemployment data that will be out tonight. But moving on, after cracking the whip on a few firms for violating the GST anti-profiteering law, the government is looking to make it easier for consumers to report such instances. Nikunj Ori has more details in this report.
Government is considering to simplify forms for filing profiteering complaints by consumers against businesses who make unjust profits under the goods and services tax regime. The current forms regarding profiteering asks consumer to file details regarding a GST identification number of businesses, input tax credit that a particular business gets on that particular product, and HSN code of that particular product. Now this is being done so that consumers who wish to file complaints against businesses who they think are profiteering under the goods and services tax regime, but do not step back because of these specific details which are not easily available. These forms have been, the standing committee under the anti-profiteering mechanism has been asked to suggest changes for simplification of these forms, and the simplified forms will be finalized in a few days by the National Anti-Profiteering Authority.
Shifting focus now to the commodities market, and Jayesh Kilani joins in with all the details there. Jayesh, over to you. Morning.
Morning, Alex. Let me start off with gold prices, which have shown strength. So gold futures actually have gained for 11 days in a row and now trading comfortably above the 1320 mark. It is also trading at the highest level since September last year, and has gained more than 4% in the last 10 days. Now all of this is largely due to the fact that dollar index has weakened and slipped below the 92 mark once again. The other precious metal that was the talk of the town in 2017 was palladium. That too has continued its run into 2018 as well, was up more than 2% overnight and at the highest level since 2001. Precious metals, moving on to the base metal space, we saw that the LME base metal index rebounded after falling for 3 days and was up in trade about 0.75%. Weakness in the dollar and stronger equities have led to boosting of commodities outlook going into 2018. As far as individual base metals are concerned, nickel was the best performer, which is up nearly 2% and posts the biggest gain amongst the 6 main metals that are traded on the London Metal Exchange. Zinc and aluminium were up more than 1% each, and copper actually paired gains and closed off the day's high, ended higher by about 0.6%. Tin was the only exception which declined as much as 0.25%. As far as Shanghai market is concerned, we are seeing positive bias for most of these base metals except for steel, which is now trading down 2 days in a row. Last time I checked, it was down about 0.2 to 0.3%. As far as oil prices are concerned, we saw WTI jump up and close above the 62 mark for the first time since December 2014. This is on the back of positive inventory data that came in, which declined as much as 7.5 million barrels for last week as per EIA report. And according to a Bloomberg survey, analysts and traders are now bullish on the WTI contract.
Thanks for that, Jayesh. Let's move on now. GM Breweries has reported a strong set of numbers for the December quarter, with profits seeing a jump of 125%. That's the stock of the day today. Let's head across to Nikki Mirchandani, who has all the details. Nikki, morning.
Morning, Alex. Good set of numbers coming in from GM Breweries. It's a good set of performance both on operational level as well as bottom line. To begin with the top line numbers, that's revenue is up by 21% at 118 crore as compared to a number of 98 crore. Net profits, as you just mentioned, is up by 125% at 22 crore as compared to 10 crore. EBITDA is also up by more than 120% at 34 odd crore as compared to a figure of 15 odd crore. Margins have more than double, almost double if not more than double at 29% as compared to 16% that we've seen in corresponding quarter. Now both your cost controlling measures along with your higher sales have led to a good set of operational performance. Now the company's raw material expenses as compared to that as a percent of sales has come down to 64 from 74% that we have seen in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. Employee expenses too have reduced as a percent to your net sales to 1.8 from 2.6. Other expenses have come down to 5% from 7% that we've seen earlier. And other income on the contrary has grown by 24% to a number of 1.30 crore. To just give you a rundown of what the company is, it's a liquor manufacturer and a distributor and has a market capitalization of more than 1,400 odd crore. And reportedly, the company has been reporting good set of consistent numbers and a growth of 25% in terms of its profit in the span of over 5 years that the company has witnessed. It is virtually a debt-free company that we're talking about.
Thanks, Nikki, for that. Let's move on to one of the updates that came in last evening. Indian Overseas Bank has decided to hit the reset button. In a notice to the stock exchanges, it said that its board had decided to wipe out its accumulated losses as it tries to make a fresh start. The bank has seen more than a fifth of its loans go bad. The bank has nearly 7,600 crore in its share premium account and had an accumulated loss of nearly 7,000 crore at the end of last financial year. The objective of this measure is in order to present a true and fair view of the financial position of the bank, and also to take the same into account during the current financial year in 2017-18. That's according to the statement that IOB sent out. The board decision will now be put to vote at an extraordinary general meeting on the 30th of January. Let's move on now to the stocks in news. Nikki Mirchandani is back with an entire list to tell you about. Nikki, what do you have for us?
Sure. The first one is Bharat Forge and RK Forging. These are the two counters that are expected to remain in focus because of US North America Class 8 truck sales number for the month of December. They have come up almost 77% for the month of December on year basis. And on month basis, the December sales number are up 15% odd. Next in the list, we have Electro Steels. Now, this is one of the insolvent company which is undergoing the NCLT proceedings right now. And ET report suggests that Tata Steel, Dalmia Group, Vedanta, along with Edelweiss ARC has apparently bid for this company. So that's one interesting counter that we need to keep an eye out on. Varun Beverages is the other one. It has entered into a strategic partnership with PepsiCo for selling the entire range of Tropicana. It does have the manufacturing, sales and distribution rights already for Tropicana sales and fruits in both your north as well as eastern region. The other counter that we need to keep an eye out is HCL Technology. Now that's the company which has terminated the pact with Great American Insurance Company. Both have mutually decided to end the joint venture that it had in HCL Eagle, and Great India Insurance Company will now sell its 8% stake that it holds in the JV back to HCL Tech, but the price of which will be decided upon the approval by the RBI. In bulk deals, you have Apollo Pipes Company. Now there is a bulk deal which is actually the transaction has happened. Their 10% stake is already has bought in by various investors such as India Akron Fund, Param Capital and Kotak Mahindra Bank. Now these funds have bought in 3.3%, 2% and 5.5% stake respectively. Kotak Mahindra Mutual Fund is the fund which has actually bought in the majority bulk 5.5% stake, and the sellers in include the Gupta family, Vinay Gupta, Neera Gupta and Meenakshi Gupta, who have sold around close to 26 and 7. That is a good percent stake in this company. The other stock that we also might need to keep an eye out on our list is Advanced Enzyme. Now that is a company which is expected to meet a fund house Astute Investment Management today.
Right. We'll leave it at that, Nikki, but more over the course of the day, of course. But Somit Sarkar is standing by now with the big brokerage calls of the day. Morning, Somit.
Good morning, Alex. On the brokerages, first we have is the brokerages on Idea Cellular. Now, CLSA has upgraded the stock to buy from sell, and also have raised the target price to 130 from 77. Now, they have moved the stock valuations to merged financials, and what has triggered this is Idea's motive to cut its debt and an early closure of the merger. Now, they're expecting long-term revival in the growth plan of the merged company, and they're expecting the merged company's EBITDA to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 38% over FY19 to FY20. They are saying that the early closure of merger is a good move, and it is positive as it was necessary to address the inadequacy in data spectrum for both the companies. They are expecting integration costs and full merger synergies of close to 14,000 crore rupees annually by financial year 2023. Now, Edelweiss is saying that the fundraising plans of Idea Cellular was necessitated by the merger pact, which was limiting the leverage ratio of the company. Now, they are expecting Idea to use this funds to prune their leverage ratio, but they are still saying that the debt of Idea would be high in the second half of financial year 2018 owing to the cut in IUC and sustained competitive intensity. Goldman Sachs is saying that the capital infusion will increase the market confidence as it is showing a commitment from the promoter towards the company. Also, this fundraising would help the company lower its debt and leverage ratio, but going forward the leverage ratio would stay at elevated levels because of the consistent EBITDA decline. Second, we have is IDFC Securities on PI Industries. Now, they have maintained their outperform rating on the stock and has raised the target price to 1,085. Now, expecting PI Industries to bounce back to growth for second half of financial year 2018, led by new product launches in the domestic business and commencing of the delivery schedules in the export business. Now, on the CMS business, they are expecting a good strong recovery going forward. They are also saying that the company is leveraging its existing relationships to tap new opportunities beyond the agrochemical sector. Now, they are saying that along with this, China slowdown, global consolidation, capacity expansion, all bodes well for the company going forward. The company has a robust order book of close to $1 billion, which provides a good revenue visibility for the next 2 to 3 years. Also, they're expecting the company's revenue and net profit to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 12% and 6% over FY17 to FY20. Lastly, they're saying that the company's foray into non-agrichemical CSM will result into substantial re-rating over the midterm.
Thanks, Amit. Moving on, the amendment bill to the Companies Act 2013 received the President's assent and is likely to be notified very soon. Shivani Saxena sums up the changes to the Companies Act in this report.
The Companies Act 2013 has now been amended twice in the 3 years since it came into force. The second amendment bill received presidential assent on January 3rd and is expected to be notified soon. Some of the key changes to the Companies Act will include the ability of the creditors to convert their debt into equity at a value that is less than the face value of the company's shares. Creditors will be able to avail this exemption or this relaxation only if their conversion is pursuant to a statutory insolvency process like the IBC or RBI approved restructuring process. Presently, the company's law mandates that any issuance of share has to be either at par value or at a premium. Another key change now allows a company to extend loan or financial assistance to another company with which it has common directors. This was completely prohibited before the amendment. Now, loan or security may be provided to a company with which the lending company's directors are interested, but only with the consent of 75% of the shareholders. Experts believe that this will significantly aid entities in financing their group companies. Lastly, the provisions that pertain to related party transactions have seen some important changes. The key change is to the expansion of the definition of a related party, which will now include resident and foreign body corporates and not just Indian companies as was the case before the amendment. This means that transactions with related parties that are foreign entities or Indian LLPs, etc., will also have to comply with the conditions laid down under the law, such as the approval of shareholders for transactions that are not at arm's length.
Now, the Campaign for Judicial Accountability and Reforms has filed a review petition in the Supreme Court challenging the imposition of a 25 lakh rupee penalty on it. The review petition is against the dismissal of their earlier petition seeking an independent probe into bribery allegations in regard to a medical college. Arpan Chaturvedi sums up the development in this report.
Well, the Campaign for Judicial Accountability and Reform, or CJAR, has filed this review petition, and what this review petition basically relates to is that the earlier petitions which were filed by CJAR and another subsequent petition was filed by lawyer Kamini Jaiswal. Both of them had sought identical relief, which was that an independent SIT inquiry be held into allegations that bribes were sought to influence the outcome of a case which was pending before the Supreme Court. And of course, the CBI, in connection to that allegations or inquiry, had arrested few middlemen and a retired Odisha High Court judge. But of course, the petition by Kamini Jaiswal and the other petition by CJR both were dismissed. In the specific one petition which was filed by CJAR, the Apex Court had also imposed a cost or penalty of rupees 25 lakh. So the CJAR has filed a review petition against that judgment of the three-judge bench which was given by the Supreme Court.
Now, it was a moment that a lot of cricket fans were gearing up for the past 2 years. Mahendra Singh Dhoni will once again return and turn out in yellow for the 11th edition of the Indian Premier League. India's former captain was retained by the Chennai Super Kings, who are also making a comeback to the tournament post a 2-year ban. Among other players retained by the Chennai-based franchise were Suresh Raina and all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja. While it came as no surprise that the Royal Challengers Bangalore chose to retain Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers in their third retainee raised some eyebrows. Uncapped Indian player Sarfaraz Khan was retained over the likes of the explosive Chris Gayle. A notable absentee among the players retained was Kolkata Knight Riders captain Gautam Gambhir. The Delhi player, who led the franchise to 2 titles in 2012 and 2014, was released by the team. Instead, they chose to retain the West Indian duo of Sunil Narayan and Andre Russell. While Gambhir has been one of the leading run scorers in the year's Ranji Trophy, Russell couldn't participate in the last edition of the league due to a 1-year doping ban. Now, there's clearly a lot to talk about, and I hope that over the course of the last half an hour we've given you some picture of what to expect over the course of the day. But there's a lot more on the website that you can read. First up, the US is suspending security assistance to Pakistan as the Trump administration escalates pressure on the government in Islamabad to prevent terrorist groups from finding safe harbor in that country. India, which is the largest buyer of solar equipment from neighboring China, is considering a 7.5% tax on imported solar panels. Those aren't taxed at the moment. Well, that's a wrap on this edition of Daybreak, but all you need to know is up next. Do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.